Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richard Leahy, here with my co-host, Maddie B. We're going to go through the NFL draft board this week, try to stay away from quarterbacks and go through the other offensive positions. But before I get into the NFL stuff, the XFL and CFL are considering trying to play an interleague championship game, which I think is a great idea. And I've honestly hoped that baseball did something like this and tried to bring in like the Japan League. I don't know what the professional league is actually called, but where you would actually have a World Series with teams from the East versus teams in the West, and then they could even expand into other countries like the Dominican and wherever else they wanted to go. And so if football is able to do it, and too bad NFL Europe's not around anymore because that would be a good other tie-in. But just to get Canada versus whatever teams come out of the XFL, I think that's a cool idea. And it will help kind of unite both countries. Hockey had it there. Too many teams in America now. Like where they could have done it. And you look at all the legendary teams in the NHL and how some of them haven't been relevant in the grand stage in decades, even though they're one of the original teams. It's a shame that they didn't try to expand more. And I know population stuff really didn't play a hand, but I'm hoping that this takes off and that you're able to see, because like now with flying and stuff, I know with the pandemic and stuff going on, it might not be a good time to start, but with flying, there's not that much difference. I mean, soccer already has their championship league where they play the best team from each country. They play each other in a tournament, and it's pretty sweet. So this is kind of like a smaller scale of that, and I'd like to see more sports adopt it. What do you think?
I think it would be a little bit bizarre just because the XFL's 11 and Canadian football has the extra man. So I think that would be interesting to see how they would do that. If it would be like a DH rule.
I don't know if it would be that. I think what's going to happen, they've already been in talks of possibly merging. And so I would hate to see it become like the AFL and NFL merger where they started doing a championship and then they just became the same league and it kind of mixed everything up. Like maybe if you're able to keep them separate and just agree on a set of rules. Now, to your point, the stadiums are set up different. I don't know how they would be able to change that or what they would decide to do, but I really don't see a difference. And I honestly wonder if they could make some extreme rule changes, like you remember the XFL scramble and stuff like that, if they could help modernize the NFL rules by maybe getting rid of the kickoff and some of the other stuff we've talked about on here. Like even just have a quarterback line up and he can either just do a drop punt or go for it if he likes a good look. Like that'd be a cool way to start the game, I think, if they're going to completely get rid of the kickoff. So maybe we'll see things. I think merging would help both survive throughout the pandemic and then potentially grow into, I don't think they'd actually compete with the NFL, but like isn't arena football dead now? So there's really no other line. If Canadian football dies, that's it. You just have the NFL. So there's a gap there for people that are looking for other football. But I don't know. You have any other thoughts on that?
No, I think it would anything to get a couple more games in. I know we've kind of hit on this before, but like if they're looking to do it during the spring, there's definitely appears to be a market for more of it. And I kind of look at the way ESPN's covering the spring FCS games, and I think it's kind of a travesty that they're wasting this opportunity because they could really highlight some of these smaller colleges that really don't get a lot of exposure, and they could be putting some of these games out there and getting probably better numbers than what they are for some of their other stuff that they're playing right now.
Let's see. I'm trying to get some numbers now because I actually forgot to look it up. It looks like the national championship game was down 14%. They had 16.9 million viewers. And so that's right after the college football one was down to one of its lowest numbers. And I wonder how much of that had to do with Baylor pretty much just running away with it. And we talked about that last week. But the numbers weren't in because it happened the day before. But I wonder if I can find some of the ratings because that's one of the things that, as you're looking at, there's not a lot of things on. There's the hockey ratings. So the national championship for the hockey was about 500,000, which is up from the 2019. But like you're saying, the 2019 championship, of course, it's up. It was only on ESPNU. I don't even know that many people that get that. It was a 5-0 shutout. So, all right, of course that's up. But I don't see anything other than some of the football games. It looks like it's at least watched in years. But they're saying that, I mean, it is only on ESPN, which some of them are on ESPN Plus, but they're still getting 500,000 viewers. I mean, some of those.
The majority of the games that I've seen have been on ESPN Plus. It's like they have a lot of these bigger games, like some of the higher ranked games that typically make ESPN, like James Madison and North Dakota State. You know, they're games that they have normally played later in the bowl season. They get airtime, but now you have a chance to really publicize every game, and it's like they're passing on it. And you can't tell me that you're going to get better numbers from NCAA baseball or softball than you would from football, even if it is a lower level FCS game.
And see, I'm looking just to see if I can find what some of those cable NBA games bring in. Because as I talk about the national championship getting 16 million, I mean, that crushed what the NBA had last year, with LeBron even being with the Lakers. Like, they had 10 million more viewers, which is just outrageous. But it shows that, like, people just don't care. Like, if you alienate by having, like, your games be very, like, meaningless, and that's basically what the NBA has become. I mean, the NCAA tournament got lucky. They matched up the number 1 and 2 teams, even though the game ended up being a blowout. It was only one game. If you're in the NBA, you're having a team of superstars, and then they're winning only in a couple games. No one's going to watch that. I mean, even gambling on it, you can put money on it, but it's like, all right, do I really need to watch it? It's not going to be a nail-biting 50-50.
Yeah.
You have a good chance. Like, you could have picked the winners in the NBA. I feel like going back to the 10 years, you could have picked 7 of the 10 winners, I think. Maybe like the Dirk upset you might not have had and some of the other ones, but maybe like the first Golden State Warriors run. But after that, they were like on top, and you knew going in that they were going to be the top team, or at least LeBron would be there if you just won championships for each side. But I don't see any other numbers for single games right now, because I wondered if they were getting 500,000 or not. But yeah, that's what I'm seeing for the FCS, and they're saying that it's down, but I don't know how many of them, because they normally don't even show FCS. Their TV ratings that they're looking at are whenever they play a regular bowl team. Like, they're talking about, like you're saying, like North Dakota State, they might play a Big Ten team or something like that. So that's why I think you see the numbers that are higher whenever you're looking at the FCS, because normally you don't see them play only FCS teams on TV, because the other games bump them down. So
Right. I mean, the only time you really see them is when they have in the playoffs.
yeah, and of course those are going to be higher than right now. They didn't start the playoffs yet, did they?
No.
So remind me in a few weeks whenever they start that, if they're having it. If I'm trying to look right now to see what the playoff schedule is going to be. They don't even have a time. It just says to be determined. Okay. All right. Well, if they have a playoff, because I don't even know if they are going to have one, we'll bring in those ratings and just compare them with even like the NCAA tournament, because right now there's really nothing on. You're going to have the NHL playoffs kicking in and then the NBA playoffs. But even for our show, I mean, we're talking about this off the cuff. Not a lot of stuff going on. I mean, you have baseball opening up. It's not like the Pirates are doing well. So they're in dead last already. 3-7. Just going to stay down. You can look at a lot of like the parity across some of the middle teams, but baseball, they're in a world of trouble, I think. They're starting to get just focused on certain players and certain markets. And outside of that, like if you're not going to get the casual fan, you're going to drop off. It's like they're trying to push like the NBA to just alienate half their fans. So I don't understand what the goal would be for them. And then in a couple of years, let's see what happens. And if it's going to be bad and stay negative, then I don't see them bouncing back from it. Because remember, like boxing and horse racing used to be so awesome, two of the top sports that everyone loved in the country. And now, I mean, they still get consistent views, but they're not one of the major sports. And I wonder if Major League Baseball is going to fall to that level. I just don't know. I don't know if they're going to try to break out of their mold. Because like everyone talks about the NFL dying, like they're still go up and down, but they're so far ahead of the other sports that it would take like a complete flip for that to even happen. Like the Super Bowl getting like 90 million compared to 7 million for the NBA, it's not even close. Like they would have to lose like 80-90% of their fans for it to even be a contested thing. So, getting into some of the NFL stuff though, the Broncos, Seahawks, and Buccaneers, their players are not going to voluntary workouts already because the coronavirus stuff still. They don't know what's happening, and I feel for them because I think a lot of people are in the same situation. So if it's just voluntary workouts, just work out by yourself. I mean, especially the Buccaneers. You went from a team that didn't even make the playoffs to winning the Super Bowl. I think that if you're the coach, you can give them a little bit of leeway because if you're trying to go back to back, you've seen how many teams burn out the next year. Tom Brady's not going to be there for 5 more years. So let them go at their own pace and then try to heat back up in time for the playoffs. Seahawks, I don't know. And then I think other teams will follow, though. The other thing, James Conner signed with the Cardinals. I was trying to see if they knew his deal.
You mean Pittsburgh West?
What's up?
You mean Pittsburgh West?
Well,
like everyone that used to play in Pittsburgh signs with Arizona.
Even the coaches?
Yes.
But I don't even know what their game is. They signed Connor for a 1-year, $1.25 million contract, which includes a $500,000 signing bonus and everything's guaranteed. But if I'm being honest, that seems very low. Like he must have had no other offers, especially for a 1-year deal. Like I kind of feel bad for him, but like the injuries add up. And he never really stepped up when I thought the Steelers could have really used him. They needed a run game. He never provided it, especially whenever you followed Bell. There was a clear drop-off once he left. And it's like, okay, where do you go from there? I guess Arizona. And in their system, you really don't use a running back much. I guess kind of.
Yeah.
But what they had with like David Johnson and how much he was underutilized with Kingsbury, I just feel like they went all wide receiver. Now, is he really going to make a difference there? Probably not. I think that's why they just gave him the 1-year deal. They figure if it comes out good, perfect. I mean, they tried with Kenyon Drake last year. Another situation. You went from David Johnson, who was awesome. You misused him. You bring in Kenyon Drake, misused him. Now you're bringing in James Conner. It's like, all right, how much of it is going to be on the coaching, to put these guys in a position to succeed? Like some of your passing wrinkles are working, but you need to get your running back involved. And I think that's one of the things that hurt Arizona down the stretch and why I don't even think they made the playoffs. But they were in a position at one point to be the leader out there in the West, and they just folded. So I don't think this moves the needle for them. I think it's just kind of a May. If we're going to get the same average results from all our running backs, why not just pay an average salary and try to work somewhere else? That's what I feel like this is. Do you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean I don't know. I think that if you're just looking at, we just want some more depth. It's not a bad deal for Arizona. Um, and then I think with Pittsburgh, they can, with clearly at this point, Connor wasn't making a lot of moves. He wasn't on the field enough to be consistent. So it makes sense just to try that. You have the picks that you could possibly bring in some free agent guys or younger players to see what they can do, because the position really has been an area that should be better.
I'm telling you, man. Just get Bell back. Is he signed yet?
No.
I mean, if you look at what he's getting, like Connor, I mean, why wouldn't you? Look, the other one, and I know you joked with me about this earlier, but Julian Edelman retired. And then you talked about him possibly rejoining with all his friends down in Tampa Bay. And I don't know how the retirement thing works. I think he'd probably have to take a year off, right? Unless he didn't have a contract. I guess
Well,
you could.
they said he didn't pass his physical.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm being honest, his career was so up and down. I saw a lot of people talking about the Hall of Fame for him. But like these are the same media guys that dog like Barry Bonds and stuff for like their performance enhancing drugs. I mean, he basically got caught with that. And how do you know that he wasn't using continuously to get an edge his entire career? And to me, it wasn't really an outstanding career, to be honest. I wouldn't even have considered him in the Hall of Fame. He had 3 years with 1,000-yard receiving. That's it. I mean, he played for however many years. But, okay, that's awesome. But, like, I saw one comparison where they were, like, wondering if he should get in over someone like Hines Ward. And I know it might be biased towards the Steelers, but I just thought there's no way that should even be a comparison. You know what I mean? Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, like, why am I listening to this? I mean, Hines had double the yards. No controversies. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. So, like, double the 1,000-yard seasons. It's like, you're talking about Julian Edelman getting in the Hall of Fame? It's only because of Tom Brady. Really. They talk about Pittsburgh. I mean, Hines played with Cordell Stewart, dude, and Tommy Maddox and whatever else other quarterbacks they threw in there before they got Roethlisberger. And he was still out there performing. So, I don't know. I see that and it's like, all right, that's a joke. If he would even get in, that's just showing you the power of like the Boston media and how they're able to just push some of their guys in across all sports. Because like I feel like the Red Sox get that bump too, and some of the Celtics and stuff like that normal teams like you wouldn't get. And like Edelman getting in over Hines Ward is just a joke. It's not even close. It's not even close. So that's my thing. Even some people were saying about like you can't even do it on touchdowns or anything. I don't even know. Playoff success? Like that's not even a thing either. But he wouldn't be there without Tom Brady. That's a fact. And he was caught with performance enhancing drugs. Also a fact. If he somehow weasels his way down to Tampa Bay, I feel like that's the guy that Tom Brady can win without. And I think, honestly, he helped taint some of Tom Brady's things because they were like, it just kind of pushed the cheater mentality that the Patriots had around them. Like Belichick spying, Oh, let's blame Tom Brady because the balls are a little bit flat. Oh, here's another guy on whatever, performance enhancing drugs. And it just kind of like added all to that. And then Tom going to Tampa Bay, it just erased all of it. And so everyone's like, oh, how do you know it wasn't Belichick pushing all that stuff? We don't know. He hasn't won without Tom Brady. So that's my final thought. You have anything else on it?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head with exactly what I was thinking. Is that the biggest thing to it was how do you like to push the Hall of Fame narrative when Hines Ward had a better resume and just better play overall? Made no sense.
Dude, it's not even like one random Bleacher Report article. Like you have USA Today, they're writing articles about it. CBS, okay, like why? And it's just talking about his postseason success. So like they are just showing his numbers in the postseason, how he's behind Jerry Rice. So all you're looking at is a guy that just played with Tom Brady, really, for a long period of his career. There's nothing else that stands out because if you look at his regular season stuff, it's just a joke. And so whenever these articles come out, they're actually showing him his regular season stats as compared to only Patriots, Matt. And he's still not number one. He's behind Wes Welker in catches, receiving yards, behind like Stanley Morgan, Wes Welker, and all-purpose yards, basically Stanley Morgan again, Kevin Falk. So it's like, okay, awesome. In the grand scheme of things, he's like 75th, 156th receiver, 254, 164. Okay, those aren't Hall of Fame numbers. Like they're talking about keeping my man Eli Manning out. He's top 10. Like I don't understand. You can't be like, oh, Eli Manning, he sucks. Like he just didn't do enough in the regular season, and then say Julian Edelman, he does really suck in the regular season, but you know what? He did do a couple playoff runs. Like that's Eli Manning. That's the exact argument. Except Edelman was even worse in the regular season. So that's my final thing. As I read the CBS one of why they think he should be in, it's honestly just because he played in so many playoff games directly due to Tom Brady. That's it. He just got lucky to play with Tom Brady for 10 years or however many years he was with him. That's my final thing. You have anything else on it?
No.
Like it's just annoying, dude. All right. Let's see. Did I miss anything else before we get into our NFL draft stuff? We went through quarterbacks already. I did have one more thing that I have written down here, Matt. It's already starting. The bad news. The bad news that Mike Tomlin is interested in Justin Fields. And they're wondering if he will make a move with the Steelers to move up to draft him. And I'll say this. I already joked about it all the time, how there's been no successful Ohio State quarterback in the NFL. Okay, that's a fact. Maybe someone's going to come around to break that. Ohio State's been a pretty dominant program in the Big Ten for like 20 years. They've squandered it, Matt. Did you know that Ohio State only has one more national championship than Michigan in my lifetime?
Huh. There you go.
So
did not know.
So you're looking at it and you're wondering, oh, okay, Ohio State, like they're really awesome in football, right? Like, no, the numbers don't lie. They're just beating up on a bad Big Ten. So if the Steelers are going to draft him, do not trade up. Do not trade up. Don't trade up at all. I would be fine with them going almost with a Aaron Rodgers approach, where if he falls to the Steelers right now, they're 24th overall. So if Justin Fields falls all the way down, and there's rumors that he might, because a lot of his draft pro day stuff, it showed some deficiencies. They haven't really reported on what they were. I don't know if it was like reads or anything, or if it was just arm strength. Like, I don't know. But they're saying out of all the quarterbacks we talked about the past couple weeks, he might fall. Mike Tomlin's now interested because he's going to fall. How far? And if you're Tomlin, do you move up, Matt?
I don't think I move up. Like, there's no one that really moves the needle for Pittsburgh in this at this point that you make a move up.
If they move up to get a quarterback, they've already gambled on Haskins. Did they even make another move like with Rudolph? I don't think so. So then you're going to have 4 quarterbacks. You're going to have to make a move. I mean, the only way that I could see it happening is if something happened to Ben and he's just like, you know what, I just can't do it. And then they're like, okay, well, some of the other quarterbacks or whatever, like I wouldn't move up to the top 5. Maybe when I say move up, I'm thinking like 18 tops. Like I wouldn't jump any higher than that, just because, like I said, no Ohio State quarterback other than, or even like quarterbacks going back, it's only been Alex Smith that I think has worked out from Urban Meyer. I know he didn't directly come from Urban Meyer. I don't think he's even been coached by him, but let's not forget, like Georgia didn't play him. He went to Ohio State. He's been successful, but it's not like he balled out in some of the bigger games. So getting to the NFL, I didn't really see enough where I thought, oh, where's his Trevor Lawrence moment? Like, is it beating up Clemson that one time? Because they lost to him last year. So I feel like that's a 50-50. And then in Alabama, he just couldn't move the ball. So, like, what are you going to do against the NFL defense? But I don't know. I would hate the move. And I don't want to be talking about quarterbacks again, but I wanted to bring it up because I've seen people ask if I saw it. Yes, I've seen it. That's my thoughts. I don't think it's worth moving up for him. If he falls, though, and that's the guy that the Steelers think is the best value at 24th in the first round, awesome. Go for it. Let's see what happens. Because like sometimes I think they just get a value guy at that position anyway. So let's go through our big board. We've been going through quarterbacks. We all know Trevor Lawrence is probably going to go number 1. Zach Wilson's been moving up. But let's look at wide receivers first. We kind of talked about this position more than the others, so I won't stay as long on it. I do find it interesting that a lot of boards have the 3 SEC guys, Jamar Chase from LSU, Jalen Waddle, and Devonta Smith in the top 10 and potentially all around each other. So if you had to pick out of those 3, Matt, which one would you take in the top 10?
That's a tough one. I'm gonna. I don't know. I'm torn between the 2 Bama receivers.
Because everyone else has Jamar Chase higher, and they say because he's younger, he's done it against better defenders because he had to do it against like the Alabama defense while Devonta Smith was just tearing it up against others. I would say right now, though, honestly, you don't see a wide receiver that dominant that they can win the Heisman. And like I had said, just looking back through the list, I mean, the last couple, Tim Brown and Desmond Howard, like those guys made a pretty good NFL career. So if you're going to pick between the 3, I think he's the safest pick. And then as a GM, you can even say, like, look, going back through history, if a wide receiver wins the Heisman, there's a reason for it. Like, I know he's a senior, he's a little bit older. I don't think the position, like, you need a younger guy in that position. Age really doesn't deter you. It's not like a running back where he has another year or 2 of hits on him. Like, wide receiver, they usually last longer anyway. So that would be my pick. Is there any other wide receivers that stand out to you in the draft, Matt?
I mean, outside of the top 3 that you just picked, not necessarily. I'm a little bit of a homer, but I think Terry Tamarian from Florida State would be a pick that I would be willing to take a shot at later in a later round. Like I think probably 5th, 6th, where there's his ceiling is through the roof, but you also you're not really risking a whole lot taking him later, as you would having to take if you're drafting, one of those other guys earlier, like the first or second round.
I mean, I was going to go almost bring up, because just looking at some of the Big Ten guys that I'm familiar with, I think one of the ones that could end up being a late round steal is going to be Nico Collins, because I think at Michigan, he just ended up being on the bad side of poor quarterback play. I mean, he showed that he could ball out against SEC teams like Florida, like Alabama. He has the size. He's 6'4". I think he just fell because maybe some injuries and some quarterback play where he wasn't able to just get the extra stats. But I think he could end up being a monster in the later rounds, where you think of this guy and you hear like, did you know he was taken in the 4th round or the 5th round? Because there were mock drafts a couple years ago, I think after the Florida year, where he had an awesome game, that he was potentially a first-round draft pick. Now he's fallen all the way out. The other ones that played themselves up, Rondale Moore from Purdue, he had the awesome game against Ohio State. He's very small, so he'd almost be like a Darren Sproles type. And I don't know how much those guys get play. So I think that's going to be a risky move if you see your team taking him at the end of the 1st round, where how much is he going to actually survive in the NFL? Because he's so small. He's 5'9", 180 pounds. He did have a lot of broken tackles as a freshman, but with the coronavirus, like, we really only saw him play that 1 year. And then Minnesota had Rashad Bateman, who they actually have as the 4th best receiver. And I've seen him play with his size. Awesome route runner. I think he could be another steal if you see a guy like that. Like, if he fell, they have him picked right now at 18th. Like, that would be a guy I could see the Steelers just taking and then just pushing up that value for the Steelers. Like, hey, we're going to keep getting wide receivers for Ben Roethlisberger. I wouldn't be surprised or disappointed at that point with the pick if they went with him in the 1st round. Was there anyone else you wanted to talk about wide receiver wise?
No.
Halfbacks, there's been some push for Najee Harris to the Steelers. I think Juju even brought it up.
Yes.
But out of those guys, because I think a lot of people are just going to compare him to ETN. We've talked about it a few. Have your mind changed? Who do you got?
I think Harris is the number one. And then I would go with the North Carolina running back second, because I know there have been mock drafts where they've kind of slated him to it. I think he kind of fits that between the tackles, inside outside type player that it seems like they kind of lean towards.
And see, they have him second behind ETN, and they have Najee Harris falling off. And that, I think one of the knocks on him where they were saying he didn't prove his receiving, but like, he's played in some weird years, and I have to give him the benefit of the doubt. Where if they don't need you to receive because your offense is just killing it, and you have the Heisman winner out there catching passes, like, how is that really a knock on you? I mean, he has 3 drops on 83 catchable passes. So, like, okay, to me, that's not that big of a deal. So I don't know why everyone was kind of harping on that. They actually have 2 North Carolina running backs up here. Before they start to go, the 2 that I was surprised to even see on the board, Michigan's running back Chris Evans. If you remember him from the Florida State game, he had the big run to bring them back and almost win the game. I think they took the lead late. And after that, he kind of got injured, had some issues off the field, never really performed. I'm surprised he was even mentioned in the draft board. And then Trey Sermon from Ohio State, another one where you're going to be up there. You're a graduate student. Like, you didn't really show it on Ohio State. I know they have a deep bench, but to even be listed above some of the guys like Oregon's running back and stuff like that, guys that actually have, I think, bigger stats is like it's like okay, I don't see the appeal. You're almost drafting on potential, and I don't think I would take that in the first 3 rounds. Maybe that's just me. But yeah, I think you're looking at ETN or Harris, and then possibly one of the 2 UNC running backs off the top of the board. And I mean, the Steelers have had success with the UNC guys. I wouldn't even be surprised with them taking another lesser known running back in the middle round because I think that could work. But I honestly thought that the last couple running backs picks for the Steelers would really work out, and they haven't. So I don't know. Like I honestly, like you look at Le'Veon Bell, people didn't think he was going to be awesome coming out. Does it just need to be a guy that can feel comfortable with Ben? And then if you do drop that guy, how long does that even last? Because like Le'Veon Bell hasn't looked comfortable with any other quarterback. So I don't know. It's kind of like the flip of a switch, and I honestly wouldn't mind if the Steelers just kind of ignored it and just went with just ignore the running back position. Just go with what you have and draft the guy late in the rounds and see what happens. That would be my preference. But, I mean, I guess if one of those other guys falls all the way to you and you can get him into the second or third round, like, why not? They don't even have any fullbacks on the big board, which, what do you think of that position dying?
I think it's a matter of time till it comes back. I think they've just repackaged fullbacks as tight ends and using them in that H-back type role. Or with the teams that use 2 tight end packages, it's essentially using a fullback. They've just kind of switched it out. I think what you'll see is that now that more teams are going spread empty, you'll have someone that's going to start doing it the opposite, and they'll start bringing fullbacks. I think eventually it'll cycle back to where you're seeing those kinds of guys like back.
Yeah, and I mean, I know Michigan's been putting some out. Them just not being on the big board isn't anything to do with their talent. I think it's just because of the way the NFL is being drafted. You can just always sign one, like in the unrestricted, like non-drafted category or whatever, and see what happens. Looking at tight ends, though, a very weird year because I remember like a couple years ago when they were taking like 3 tight ends, it seemed, in the top of the draft. Now you have Kyle Pitts from Florida. They have him 5th overall. They don't even have another tight end until the midway point of the second round. Pat Freiermuth from Penn State. And I'll be honest, I don't even remember him. I wouldn't even expect Penn State to have a tight end in that position because I didn't think that was a guy that stood out to me. So, like, even just seeing that, I wonder how weak the tight end class is this year. And that's not a good sign because even if I look down here, like Michigan has Nick Eubanks, who I don't remember even being a standout or playing much, but he's on the big board. So, if you're looking for a tight end, maybe it's worth your while to move up to Kyle Pitts this year or just kind of reevaluate. And I don't know if that's a position falling off or guys becoming more of like a hybrid type tight end slash. Like Travis Kelce's a tight end in fantasy. He should not even be considered a tight end because he's like never even down in a 3-point stance. So he's basically just a big wide receiver. Like, okay, why even draft him in that position? So, I don't know. You have any thoughts on it?
I don't know. I mean, tight ends, in my opinion, I think tight end is arguably the most important position because you're asking tight ends now in the league to be your matchup guys. And I think, like, specifically with what New England and Tampa Bay now do with Gronk, that they can put him in line and have him block. They can release him on passes, and I think he creates so many matchups that it really is a weapon. And you look at Pittsburgh. I mean, for years they had Heath Miller that was able to catch passes across the middle and was very serviceable in the run game. I think it helps to have a serviceable tight end. So would it hurt them to go that route? Not really, but I think if you're Pittsburgh, the directions you need to go is running back, lineman, and then fill holes as needed.
And that could be a focus that they go. I know the next position I have here, centers. I feel like the Steelers are going to take one. And you have Landon Dickerson from Alabama. They have him as a mid-second round pick because of his ACL tear and his past injury. And as we've seen before, injuries can have a guy fall who knows where. So, like, the Steelers could wait on him and see. The other guy that I thought, there were two other ones. Drew Dalman from Stanford that they have way down, and Ryan McCollum from Texas A&M. I thought they would be a lot higher. And so I feel like maybe this is a year where the Steelers can just sit and wait and see who falls to the 4th or 5th round and then just pick a guy. I mean, even Pitt has a guy, if they want to stay local, Jimmy Morrissey, that's ranked 296 that they could pick up in a later round and then just kind of go with it. Because I don't really see that many studs this year coming out, and it could just be because of the shortened season, because I think centers can really separate themselves throughout the year. But the Landon Dickerson, the injury history, that's one thing that always scares me off, especially because he's such a high center. He's 6'6", that if guys can get up under you, it's going to put you at risk, I think, to re-injure that knee. What do you think?
Well, I'm a little bit biased because Landon Dickerson was a Florida State guy before he went to Bama. And when he transferred out to Alabama, he put on an insane amount of muscle. So it was awesome for him to make that change. And I think he would be a type of player that I think would be a good fit, because even with his injuries and stuff, a lot of the players at Alabama really rallied around him. So I mean, a good character guy for the locker room is someone that they need, and especially in a position of need. He has the size that I think he would be able to fill that void for a while.
And I haven't heard anything about him moving positions, but even with the injuries, I mean, you can move to a position and put him less at risk for re-injury. But then it comes out of, okay, you're drafting in a position of need for center. Is it really worth it? But I could see a team grabbing him and throwing him at guard, or even trying to make him a right tackle or something. I mean, just being as big as he is, you got a lot of flexibility. And normally centers know the game, so they're pretty smart players. It's pretty easy for them to learn another position, unlike if you're going the opposite direction, moving to center, because you're not used to having all the commands and stuff that you need to do. So that's one guy I would look at, and I just wonder how far he's going to fall. I could also see a team just jumping and grabbing him because of that versatility and thinking, okay, that's a guy we know, we have trust in our staff, we can keep him healthy. Guards, there doesn't seem to be a lot of high offensive line talent this year. And I'm just going to chalk it up to they didn't have enough game film. There was one that I thought, Trey Smith from Tennessee. They have him as the third best behind Wyatt Davis from Ohio State and Kendrick Green from Illinois. Again, I like Trey Smith's size, 6'6", 330 pounds. You just get some size and move it around. Because I feel like the Steelers right now, if they're going to get some guys, and there are other guys that have the same size on this board, and they're probably going to have more of a breakdown than what I have. But I would say get some line help, get some size, and just try to get a push to try to build a running game. And that's where I would like to see them draft. Get one of the bigger guys, and even if it ends up being a guy that you have to move around, Like, get him, and then even looking at if we bounce into like the tackles, you do have some higher picks here, where they have Sewell from Oregon as the 4th overall pick, and then Slater from Northwestern as 11th. A big
Now you
guys.
were saying about that, about Pittsburgh jumping up for a quarterback. If they jumped up for that center, that would be a move that I would be in support of. Because then for someone with that type of size that you're guaranteeing, almost guaranteeing to be a plug and play type player, then you know you're going to keep Ben protected, and it doesn't matter who you have as your running back or wide receiver. They're gonna have the blocking to be successful.
I mean, there's another one just in the first round. What they're looking at from tackle from Stanford, Walker Little, that they have as a 24th overall. He's 6'7", 309 pounds. He hasn't even really played. So they're putting him up there based on potential. But like, what if the Steelers could get a guy like that in the second round? Like you're saying, like, let's coach him up and trust some of the process a little bit and try to get it. I just think that the center and guard positions are very thin this year. And so do you just take a guy based on his size and his potential and potentially try to work him in? Because as we've seen with the defense, it's been pretty solid. Why not just take like 3 or 4 linemen in the draft? Like, do you have any preference with that? Like, I just don't see if I'm thinking about it and I'm saying like, okay, like where are you going to fill those gaps? Just go for it. You have however many picks, 5, 6, 7, 8. You have 8 picks, and you have a bunch in the 4th round. You have 2 in the 4th, 2 in the 7th, and 1 in the 6th. Just take like a couple linemen in a row there. If you can jump and get like an offensive guy, whether you go running back or if you just go another receiver or whatever, because I honestly wouldn't even go tight end if I were them. I know that they have a need there. It's like, all right, get someone in the 7th round. But try to fill some of those offensive line holes, because get them this year while you still have Ben, and just try to build some consistency going forward. Because if everyone's devalued this year, next year I could see a ton of linemen being overvalued, and then you're going to have to take them early. Because it's a game of averages, Matt. If one year all the linemen are somehow miraculously awful, that's not because of their talent level. Like, if anything, you're going to have more talent this year, I think, because of the less games and just not being able to properly evaluate that. So if I were them and I was looking at offense, that's how I would go. That's how I'm going to end this segment. Do you have anything else, or what do you think they should do?
I don't know. I just keep leaning more towards they've been successful, honestly, with their drafts, and maybe they're the guys that they go after aren't guys that typically we think about, but I honestly trust their scouting department because they fill their needs for what they are, and I think good, bad, ugly. That's one of the benefits of Pittsburgh is that they address what they need their own way, and the saying goes, opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one. Well, I mean, you can't knock the fact that they've been a playoff potential team every year. Now, you split hairs over how far they should be going, but they acquire the guys that they need, and they get the production out of undrafted free agents and some of these other guys that I think take advantage of it.
And so that's what we'll look at next week. We'll look at the defensive side, see if there's any guys. We'll go through each position again and probably just tack on kickers and punters before just doing a recap before the draft the following week. So, Matt, take your time, look through your picks, see if there's anyone that you would like the Steelers to draft, because I'll do the same, and we'll come back next week and see what we can come up with. Because, like I said, the offense, everyone's so focused on quarterbacks this year. I think that's the time. Don't worry about Justin Fields. If he falls to you, great. But even if you get him, there's a lot of size on the offensive line in this draft that they have falling to the middle rounds. And so just get some guys and different players and try to get a cohesive unit going forward. Because if you can build a line while Ben can help them work out some of their kinks for a year or two, perfect. Because then the quarterback's going to step into a much better position than if you didn't do that. So, we have one more NFL thing. I know it's pretty much just an NFL show. We talked about some other stuff off the top. But there are teams, the NFL is planning for full stadiums. If I can even get it on the big board here with my arrow. But the Buffalo Bills, they're letting fans in that are fully vaccinated. So I'm not really sure if they're going to try to go with an ID card or how they're going to prove that ahead of time. It's probably a little bit easier with season ticket holders, I would think, because you have that ahead of time. But they're going to allow use the passport system, which is, I guess, part of the New York State Excelsior Pass, which is a phone app that you can get verified by your doctor. And they're going to go ahead and try to have 100% capacity. So, I actually don't mind it. I think it's weird, though. And I don't even want to get on the political stuff, but I just think it's weird that right now you can go to like the bar at 100%. No one's wearing masks. And maybe it's different in Pennsylvania. But they can't wear masks because you're drinking, dude. Otherwise, why are you even there? But you can't go outside and sit at a baseball game at even half capacity because, reasons. It doesn't make sense to me. And if you need the vaccine card to get in, awesome. I don't care. Just you're outside anyway. So at least try to do something to get fans in the stands because I think the game is really hurting without it. Plus, it will help the Steelers with the better salary cap next year. You have any thoughts on it, Matt?
We had talked before off the air about the vaccinations and different things, and that was kind of the direction I was leaning myself. Was I really wasn't in favor of getting it, but I knew inevitably it was going to end up being something that we were going to have to get, or that they were going to find some way to have you get it done anyhow. So I just kind of looked at it like, well, I'm just going to be proactive and just get it done. That way they're not inconveniencing me during football season. And, if that's the game that they want, that the experts want us to play so that we can be at sporting events and get things back to normal, then, I'm willing to play the game.
And, it cuts both ways. So it has to be a tough business decision, too. Because by requiring it, they're saying that it's a choice. You don't have to go to the game. Viewing on TV is down, and they didn't let people in the game. So you're alienating your fans at some point. What are you doing to get more people to watch? Are you going to push, like we talked about with the FCS games? Why aren't they pushing ESPN to show their games more? The NHL, I don't even know if we mentioned it, but the NHL split with NBC because they're probably tired of NBC always shoving them on NBC Sports or whatever. You can't watch any NHL games. It's kind of dumb to just have a one network deal. Because even the SEC, the mighty SEC, that most of their big games are on CBS. I don't know why ESPN talks them up all the time, but they must think that their other games are very undervalued and they have a hell of a deal to promote them like that. Because now the Big Ten realized that ESPN, they had their best games. They weren't promoting them. They went to Fox. And now it seems like ESPN is just talking up the Big Ten about how awesome they are. Because guess what? If they don't have the top game. They have to make it seem like the middle games are awesome games. And so I think that's where you get the hype of the SEC. ESPN wasn't getting the Alabama games each week, so they had to talk about how awesome South Carolina was, or Missouri, or whoever else was in the middle there, because that's the games that they had. And so, like, even with the NHL right now, they're going to try to do a split with ESPN, and awesome. Because now, guess what? Other people are going to talk about your sport. And so that's where, like, the NFL right now, they have all the networks in. But at some point, now, how are you going to bring the fans back into it? Because all sports are down with viewership. People aren't just going to sit inside and watch the games anymore, I don't think. Because I think the pandemic can get people outside and trying to keep their sanity instead of sitting in front of the television. I think those are going to be permanent changes for some people, where they just don't watch sports anymore. So, am I going to be wrong and they're going to have a bounce back in the fall? Maybe I am. I don't know. If you're not going to have tailgating, though, you're going to cut out that portion of fans. And if you never bring it back, they might never come back. Like, I'm still mad that Pittsburgh got rid of a lot of their tailgating stuff that they used to have, and now it's very regulated and it's very weird and stale. So, if people were like, hey, you coming back, we should go tailgate, it's like, why? You can't, like, hang out all day. They make you get out. So it's just a different thing. So I think that's one of the things that they have to tackle. Anything else for the NFL?
No, not that I can think of.
All right, got a couple more things here, just short little things. College football, I know we talked about the draft, so we already hit on some of them. But USC football is having spring practice. A homeless man, it's a younger homeless man. I looked at the picture. I don't even know how he got into the practice. He just went into practice, put on a jersey, started catching punts with the special team. After practice, he went and ate with them, and he slept in their players' suite where they're practicing, and he even got to just hang out in the jacuzzi with some of the players. And so they're tweeting out that the story's true. I don't know why the media is not picking it up, and you haven't really heard about this. You see it on some of the smaller networks, but I honestly think that it's kind of like a what is going on for Clay Helton. I mean, it's kind of weird that they stuck with them. I thought they really should have pushed for Urban Meyer. Now he's in the NFL, so that's not going to happen. Are they going to... I mean, they're not going to win a national championship this year. If they did, I would be completely shocked. Just because you can't tell me a program is hitting on all cylinders if you just have homeless people just stumbling in and practicing. It's like something out of a funny sports movie, Matt. Like, the security member said, he looked pretty young and could pass as a college student. And he is 5'10". I mean, he grabbed 87 off a guy that was 6'4". So they said that was the giveaway. But it wasn't a giveaway, though. Like, he practiced with them. He hung out. He slept there. And so then he tried to say that he was a staffer. And then they were able to detain him. But who knows how many times they've done it. But just crazy that you could go down there and just have the confidence to be like, hey, I'm catching punts right now. Like, all right, because I could see, like, if you were doing walk-on tryouts or something, getting in, but this is just spring practice. This is before walk-on workouts. Walk-ons don't come on until they enroll in the fall, right? The summer? It has to be the fall, I think. So, like, there's another, like, training camp portion where walk-ons get to try out for the team. That's why you can see some people, even late transfer now, doesn't really affect the team roster because they don't actually settle scholarships until the walk-ons and stuff in the fall. Because you could have a guy medically retire, you could have a guy do whatever, not make the team. I mean, you have the NFL draft right now going on. It's not like NBA where they can go back, but I think it's just crazy that you're in spring practice. You should know all the guys there. because they're either guys that played for you last year or they're incoming recruits, which you spent a hell of a time recruiting. So how would the position coach even, or the special teams coach, not know who they are? It's not like it's a brand new coach. Like Clayton Helton's been there for a while. So I don't know. I'm shocked by it. What are your thoughts, Coach?
It shocked me. Like I don't even know what to say. Like for as much security and COVID protocols and different things, like how does that even happen?
Yeah, that's the other thing. COVID. It's not like the guy's just doing it right now. It's not like it's like a regular year where a guy snuck in and it was like a funny thing because he's a regular student or whatever. They said he was homeless. So like he wouldn't even have the ID, right? How does that even happen? And he was younger, like they didn't even release his age. Like what if he's like 30 something years old? And he thought, you know what, I'm gonna go play with USC today. It's like, all right.
It amazes me more that he got into the facility because like this isn't like he's going into like Deion Sanders Jackson State. Like the USC is a Power 5 school that's supposedly one of the quote blue blood programs. But you would think that the security would be through the roof. That there'd be no way that they could get it, especially in a pandemic era.
And that's the thing. And apparently they didn't have that stuff because, like you said, it's pandemic. You're checking to see who's coming in, which they obviously aren't. And I think that's the most alarming thing because of how strict California is. But then it's almost like, okay, all right, what are we doing here? Like, how did he even get in? How did he get a jersey? Where's the guy that the jersey belonged to? Because did he automatically just trick one of the staffers? I don't know. I have no idea. So that's my last thing. Anything else you have for football?
No.
All right. I've been trying to talk about this. I always forget. But summer workouts, dude. Warmer seasons coming up. If you're playing football, like at the high school level or even a smaller college or whatever, you don't have those team workouts. Now's your time to get in shape. Are you doing anything, Matt, with your guys to get ready for summer?
Well, we've been involved with our winter lifting and starting to get ready to start heading out and doing some things in the spring here. But I've been excited about the progress we've made because last year I felt like we were starting to make some progress, and then what ended up happening was the pandemic hit, and we ended up losing so much of that time. But I've really been impressed with the amount of work that the kids have been putting in and trying to make progress. So I want to see how things play out here as the spring progresses and we start to hopefully get back into some sense of normalcy.
And that's one of the things that I wanted to bring up too. Those who listened to the show last year when we didn't really even have sports, I jumped in and decided just to randomly run a 10K that the Big Ten Network puts on in July. So I did like a month of training. And I was hoping this year, they haven't announced it, but I'm hoping that they do another virtual race. Because like I think just looking at some of the ones, like it's not appealing to me to just go run across the city with like thousands of other people. But getting like I think if you listened last year, I think I mentioned I have a Garmin watch fitness band thing that tracks your pace or whatever, and just doing it on like a personal level. Because sometimes like even now with everything being shut down, you got to kind of have that discipline. Because they always talk about how everyone all during the pandemic, everyone's gaining so much weight because they're just sitting around. Like, no, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that at all. If you're not driving to work, you have extra free time to work out now. Like if you decide that, hey, I'm losing my half hour commute, whatever, however long it is, and you decide that you're going to sit and eat extra breakfast and watch TV, like that's an unhealthy choice by you. Like you can take advantage of that by trying to work out. So I'm keeping an eye on that. I'm going to try to run a 5K. The Michigan's having one for like the Big House 5K virtually. So I'm going to try to run that this weekend, I think, gauge my progress where I was from last year. Because before that, I hadn't run at all in like years. So that's going to be my thing for summer workouts. I'll probably talk about it this year again. So hopefully you liked it. It'll be at the end of the show anyway. But that's going to be my thing. Just trying to be, I didn't even have a good time last year. I don't remember what it was, but I think my watch has it saved. So we'll do a comparison this summer, see if I get any better or if I have even a better time this weekend as I get back into it. But that's what I'll be doing. I really don't have anything for the final bell. Most of the stuff I have, we already talked about. Do you have anything, Matt?
Yeah, Florida State had their spring game, and I was happy to see Mackenzie Milton getting back into action. And it was something that, thinking of Pittsburgh's quarterback situation, I kind of thought, depending on how his season plays out and if he's able to show that he earns that starting quarterback job, if he's playing well, gets Florida State playing well, maybe that's a player that would be of interest to Pittsburgh if Roethlisberger retires. Because he's a national champion winner at UCF, and winners win. He'd be a good fit in the black and gold since he's already had to wear it at UCF.
Well, we'll see if that happens because if you remember Washington, they didn't know what to do with Alex Smith because they didn't think he was ever going to come back. So I think you're always going to have that in the back of the mind. Like I think for him to get high draft, or even I guess not even high draft, but to get that buzz to be drafted, I mean, I think he would have to survive an entire season and push Florida State to, I don't even want to say the Belk Bowl or whatever that became, because didn't Belk go out of business? I'm talking about like a New Year's Six type bowl. I think teams would want to see that type of success from him. Otherwise, I think his best bet is going to be undrafted. And I don't know if a team would take that risk. Although, there's always a chance of the CFL XFL merger, which I think would be awesome. Because give the kid a chance to come out and show it. But I mean, you've already seen how they come out and exceed expectations. I just think with his size, he needs to play well to be considered for the NFL. Anything else?
That's it.
All right. Thanks for listening. As always, tell your friends about the show. Visit southboundsports.com. You can see all of our old episodes there. We've been getting some people downloading old episodes. That's awesome. Definitely leave a review. I still think we have a 5-star rating at this point, but that always helps. And so anything you can do, we appreciate you listening, and we'll see you next week.